Jeez. Too
Wait,
late.
why isn't my push to talk was not working? That was oh well. Yeah, episode 81 of Cast of Shadows, where we talk about all things Star Citizen. So, got obviously the major thing of the last 2 weeks, because that's how long we've been here, is the the Q3 update. Got last Thursday, which was great, honestly. Talking about it for a bit, but we got a lot of cool stuff with that update. It was obviously it was all stuff we've heard before, but it was a nice breakdown of things to come. Essentially, like here's the Alpha 3.18 patch, but instead of hyping it up, they're just telling us about it.
Yeah. Describing some of the features and kind of setting expectations, which I think is a good thing. And I mean, some of the stuff they discussed, I thought really kind of is good. How do I put this? It shows that they're listening to the community. Like specifically, pick out one item is the crime stat system. Like they said, hey, we're because we're implementing KSP or adjusting its current status, and making it a more active role, and because of the stuff that's going on with cluster prison, we're also going to adjust this crime stat system. And people have been, that's been a topic of conversation now since they first said they were going to do anything, and people are saying, it's a bad idea because of all the problems that you have, and who wants to go to prison for a level 1 crime stat or have to go into you know a PVE battle just to get a level 1 crime stat taken care of. And so what they discussed in this video, I think, shows that, hey, they're actually listening to what we're saying as a whole. Maybe not to the individuals, but it's a
Yeah,
good
no,
sign.
it was good because we actually got some answers on some issues, like the crime stat thing. Or as in the past, you get, oh, I bumped into my friend's ship. Like we're at a party, but I bumped into his ship accidentally, and now suddenly I have a level 1 crime stat or level 2 crime stat. In my case, you 3 somehow, but you end
Yeah,
up having a crime stat, and suddenly every single living being on a player is after you, and you just
yeah,
die and
and
get sent to prison because it's on it. You just went from 0 to 100 on the criminal scale, and now you're dead. Now you're in prison before you got off the ground, so to speak.
yeah, you had a local parking ticket that got sent to the FBI for a nationwide manhunt.
And then the NSA just throws all their evidence on you just in case. But yeah, whereas now it's okay. Level 1, level 2, those are just fines. You can pay those off. Those are misdemeanors. Those are minor felonies.
Yeah, which means also that you can land without being shot by the turret systems.
Right. Well, the fact that you can just land, because some locations won't even let you land because you call them to
Yeah.
land, and they're like, "No, you have a crime stat. We're not letting you in."
Yep.
Whereas now they said,
Yeah.
like, if you get scanned, they'll be like, "Hey, we see you have some outstanding fines and stuff. You got to take care of that."
Yeah. Another one that stood out to me was they talked about what you'll be able to do as far as the salvage. Because the community's kind of been up questioning what's going to happen with the initial implementation, especially after the medical system got put in, and we're running around drugging each other out. And they explained right off the bat that as long as you keep your shields up, you won't be able to. Your ship won't. Nobody can salvage your ship, the outside of your ship, while your shields are up. Which, hey, good
I
info, right?
exactly, yeah. Now I was really pleasantly surprised to hear that. Like they actually had a decent plan as a pre trying to freaking pre-facilitate the player fucking up and
Yeah.
fucking with other players. Pardon my French, but they actually had a good
No.
idea for once in that regard. Like, hey,
Yeah.
we know because of the medical system and everything that players are going to use this to try and hole strip other players' ships. Well, as a weapon, you can't do that. At least not in the shield. I like that.
Yeah.
And obviously they can expand upon that and everything in the future, but this is again for tier 0 implementation starting to sound really good. And they finally have a visual nailed down for it from the footage, which looks decent. It looks different enough from the other laser beams. Hopefully,
They also answered. I think it was. I think Data Machine brought it up a couple episodes ago. The question about how you're going to be able to use your hand tool to essentially like transfer those items, and I think they answered it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember hearing it and thinking, "Oh, that they just answered Data's question." On that. So I think it's right now it's going to be handled much like they said it's going to be handled much like hand mining, where you just kind of put it up, pick it up, and it go put it into your inventory.
which that works.
Yeah. Again, same thing. Tier 0, right? They can always change it later.
Exactly. That's why it's all open development. Still working things out, trying to get things right, and get things just to work. But yeah, it was really good stuff on salvage, on the repairing. They showed off how it's going to work, and they were very like I was glad that they actually made a point to go, hey, this is only just going to essentially repair the armor and the hull of your ship. It's not going to be like, oh, you can 3D print an engine. No.
Yeah.
And I was glad that they emphasized on that because we knew that, but again, we have our noses pressed to the glass. Yeah, with an earphone always there. Other people don't, so it was good to get that clarification. They also talked about the Korea and the criminal stuff, surrendering that they even added to the fine terminals.
Yeah, that also I think is really good stuff. I mean, I personally don't think I would be using it, but it's an option, right? It's a gameplay option for those out there. That's what we want is options.
It was great too because it's like, oh, it's going to reduce. I don't remember the number they said, but it was going to reduce part of your sentence if you just willingly surrender, like just essentially walk up to the cops and go, arrest me.
Yeah, I think it.
I did a bad thing.
It's something like 20%. So
something like that. Yeah.
Depending on what the crime stat is, that could.
And it can be 20% of 40 hours though, but still.
Or it could be 20% of 1 hour, which is that's a big drop. So. But still, it's good to see that they're actually thinking about, like we just said, that pre-implementation. In other words, like, okay, if we install this mechanic, what other mechanics do we need to adjust to allow better gameplay for this new mechanic? And to me, that's the new step that I've never seen them do before. Because in the past, it's always just been, well, we had a small team off in a dark corner working on this project and not thinking about anything else and not realizing like the bigger impacts of what their creation is going to do, and we just put it in the game. And that's where you get just everyone just kind of goes, "Oh, this is a horrible system. Why are we dealing with this?" Now they're starting to actually think about that process of integration, which is huge. And it's a good sign that we're at a new stage of development in the sense that it seems like a lot of the core mechanics are in, so now they're starting to focus on these things.
Yeah, it's nice to actually see them both in mentality and in practice being all these different gameplay mechanics working together as opposed to just put gameplay mechanic in and then work on next gameplay mechanic until you have essentially the foundation for each gameplay mechanic, and then we'll start interweaving them and starting the foundations on them. Like now they're actually planning a bit ahead with it,
Yeah,
but they're still keeping to that. We need to just do tier 0 because, like at least with the exception of mining, we need to do tier 0 that we can then go, okay, we can't just build up salvage to the point where it's at 100% done and then move on to the next thing, because then we move on to the next thing. It's like, wait, this is supposed to interact with salvage, but we already completed salvage. Like that's why they're not doing that. So
yeah,
it's good to see that they're actually planning that part ahead, but still keeping to, we need to build the foundations before we build the skyscraper, as it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think once cargo comes in and they've finally kind of figured out how you're going to move boxes, not just one SKU boxes, but large boxes and large quantities of boxes all at the same time. I think that'll definitely have an impact on mining, just because of the transferring of the consumables. But also, we'll finally start seeing those saddlebags that like the prospector carries.
Yeah, and you can remove them and put new ones in.
And persistence, you can now drop them and have a buddy come pick them up, and you get to move on to the next asteroid. They'll stay there.
Yeah,
Good
I mean,
things.
the cargo refractor is still planned for 318, right? As far as I'm aware.
Supposedly, yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah,
know that wasn't
keyword
covered. That
supposed.
wasn't covered in the Q3 update that they gave, but it's still on the roadmap. So I'm curious if that's actually going to make it. I feel like that's the one thing that may get pushed back.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for it. I mean, I hope that it does show, but if anything's going to drop, I think it'll be that, just because it's such
Significant
a
and
deep.
large aspects.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's a core thing that's going to revamp how cargo works.
Yeah, and not only does it, like, it impacts literally everything
Yeah.
in the sense of like even the quanta system is going to have to be affected by it, because how do you have AI hauling cargo if the cargo system doesn't take them into account? Because you won't be able to have a balanced system if the AI doesn't have to go through the same cargo loading and offloading process that the players do. Like, in other words, if the AI just magically spawns a ship, jumps in, and it's fully loaded, and he goes from point A to point B, that means the AI will always beat the human in cargo running, which then
It also means that they'd
how
be immune to piracy. Like, oh, we're going to catch them while they're loading the cargo or whatever. Like,
yeah,
and I
exactly.
mean, obviously, right now you're not going to be able to do that in a sense because you go to the hangar, you're just going to see people loading cargo, but you can't do anything because arms system. Future, when there's no arms system, you can be, all right. This is the plan. We jump them while they're loading the cargo because there won't be an arms system. You'll have to rely on security and so on.
Or, well, take it to the other end, offloading.
Right.
You go to an outpost that doesn't have a hangar, you're going to have to land on that pad and go through the process of offloading. And if the AI doesn't have to do that, then same thing. You're skipping a whole section of gameplay where the player can't even try and pirate them, the AI. So that's where, yeah, you're going to have equal integration for AI and player cargo running in general.
And that's a hard thing to do, to where, because it's like having players do stuff, sure, okay. Having AI do the same stuff as players, a heck of a lot harder.
Yeah. But I mean, they're going to have to do it in some way. There's going to have to be that even matching of abilities in some manner. I don't know. I have no idea how they do that.
It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
think they're gonna have the AI doing that when cargo refactor comes in, but it will
Oh,
probably,
definitely not.
but it will have to be something. It is definitely something they have to do.
Yeah,
Just for that gameplay alone, let alone
contemplating.
the balancing.
Yeah, I was when I'm talking about like how in
Later down
depth
the
it
line,
needs to
yeah.
be. I'm thinking like tier 5.
Right.
It's years down the road, but still, like even then, you still got to kind of think about that at tier 0 if you're the development guy, because your mechanics and your structure has to have that growth exponential to be able to insert whatever they come up with to the system.
As I said, it's like they have to plan ahead, even though they're only building the foundation.
Yep.
Gotta keep that in mind, so that when you're building it, it's like, oh, the way we built it didn't allow for this.
Tear down the skyscraper. But
No.
I
yeah,
think I mute myself.
the only to be honest, the only real things that I like wasn't really interested in that episode was the rivers and the racetracks. But at the same time, I recognize that that's just because of my own interests. I know that
Right.
there's
Mm.
sections of the community that were probably really interested in.
Yeah, like I'm really interested in the racetrack just for the novelty of it, if not the fun aspect. But it was good to get more updates on that. For me, though, the biggest
Yeah.
thing was definitely the crime and selfage and the wrecks.
And the what?
They also talked about the rivers. How
Yeah.
they updated the visuals of the rivers, including cliff meshes, so that you can have that like Rocky Canyon wall river. They can now separate. They can now be separated by rocky shores, and they updated splines for improved smoothness of the river. Korea and crime stuff. They got massively updated interior for Korea, which matches the Crusader aesthetic, and it's. I will say, it looks nice, but I am going to miss old Korea.
Yeah.
Because that's been the Korea we've known and loved for since 2016.
So, question: they said that they're going to have a system in place that, like, if you break in, you can go in and start extracting like stuff that they've supposedly the Korea forces have
Contraband?
confiscated.
Yeah.
Yeah, evidence
Uh,
locker.
So, are we going to get our whiskey bottles back again?
Oh,
Maybe.
possibly.
I
I
would
mean,
love
keep in
that.
mind they're not money anymore. It's just straight up booze now. You can actually drink it.
Yeah, but I mean, I want to take my MSR and just slowly start filling it with bottles.
And then sell it somewhere, or just drink it over time.
Just drink it over time, like maybe break the first bottle open when the game actually is in, release state. See how many bottles I collect until then.
There's probably gonna be a few wipes between then and now. Not to
Persistence,
mention your
man,
ship.
persistence. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say not to mention your ship blowing up or some glitch or
No, you. That's in the military. You have airplanes that are like the problem child airplanes in squadrons. So they don't fly them, and what they do is they keep them in the hangar and they steal parts off of those to replace in the other ones. And so that those airplanes that stay in the hangar, they're called a hangar queen. And it just implies that, like, yeah, that's the plane that never flies, and we steal everything off of it. So I would definitely do
You
that.
do need that power plant.
I would just have the MSR sit in the hangar and just after every mission come back, dump a couple bottles inside of it, and then close it back up.
creating booze. Get so full,
Yeah, I don't
like
know why,
the
but
secret compartment is starting to like burst at the seams, the door, like,
yep.
and then it opens and a wave of whiskey just starts pouring out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why, but I just have a nostalgia thing for those whiskey bottles. I think it just goes back to the, my first real gameplay in the PU. Those bottles were around, and it was a thing to go collect them and
Yeah,
sell them.
you and I would collect them all the time.
Yeah.
It was fun because it was one of the first real. 'Cause that was when like actual gameplay became a in the earlier builds.
Yeah. And KSP had like the biggest stash of them in one place that you could run around. I think it was like 5 or 7
I
bottles that you could pick
think,
up at any one time.
yeah, there was 3 in the lock in the that little storage closet. There was one in between. There was lockers there. I think there was another one somewhere. 5 maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my nostalgia thing. So that's why I'm always thinking like, when are they going to bring it back? I want my bottles.
Some of the wrecks even had them. Remember around the yellow
Yeah.
belt.
Yeah, when they first brought the first Starfarer Rex in that you could go investigate, and there's always a couple bottles there. Yeah, good times back then.
There needs to be whiskey in the contraband evidence lockers.
Definitely. But yeah, what
We
else?
got that. Obviously, we talked about the crimes that 1 and 2 now considered fines and no longer prevent you from landing or cause a shoot on site from security. You can now surrender. Oh, and additional Klesher NPCs and escape route updates, as well as some mentioned or teased gameplay that talked about during the Q3 video.
Yeah, that's right. They were talking about
They couldn't
altering
talk.
the
They couldn't
path.
talk about it, but they teased something with the prison stuff. They didn't want to
Well, I think
spoil
they're
it.
saying that the escape path, they're looking into like having it be a very varied pathway that so like you can't it'll be harder because you technically can't memorize like the correct path every time, I guess is how I kind of understood it. I could be wrong.
I guess we'll find out, but it is nice that we're getting updates to the prison stuff. Like, personally, I don't plan to spend any time in prison, but it is nice to know that, for those that do, and for those that end up being in prison and decide to, I want to escape because it's fun or because I don't want to play the system, whatever it is, they have that option.
Yeah. I think it makes sense that at some point in the future we're going to see definitely a like a crime boss mission giver being in the prison. That just to me that makes sense.
Yeah, like the guy on the inside. He's in prison, but he's still super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also like to see it. Again, this is I'm thinking way down the road, but I'd like to see it that if your reputation is of a certain state, I'm implying negativity, but who knows like what variance it could be. But essentially, you have a bad reputation with a certain gang. Maybe when you go to prison, depending on if where the prison's location is and how close to that gang's territory or how many people from that gang are also in that prison, maybe it raises you know your the threat of something bad happening while you're in prison, based on that whatever factions are majority controls inside that prison. So kind of like like our real life system. You mess with the East LA gang and you go into prison in Southern California, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're going to be after you inside the prison just because they're local.
Yeah, you can because they want to have that whole gameplay thing just within prison on a single world, and you build on that. Like you're stuck in prison, and there's like this whole world of things to do just in prison. Great.
Yeah, it's not my preferred gameplay, but I want to see
But the
it
fact that
because
it's
again,
there is a good
it's
thing
that
because
diversity and that options.
exactly. And also, they talked about the sand caves that are being polished and done for 318, and they're going to be added to various locations. We talked about that in the past, but what was it? Daymart's getting them. Some of the moons on Hurston are getting caves for the first time, and it's the usual suspects. All the planetary bodies, or most of them, are getting new caves. I should say. The Daymar crash sites, the mission tweaking for 3 missions. They got LOD improvements and battle nav pass for it. Better nav pass.
Good.
But they're also talking about how they're going to be spawned. Enemies will spawn there, just like the Rex on Reclaimer Rex on Microtech. Should be fun. You don't have to go to one place to experience on foot combat on a planetary surface.
Yeah.
Now it'll be a bit more diversified.
One thing that I would like to see that I know they haven't really talked about, but I'd like to see more of maybe not the colonial outposts per se. I mean, I would like to see that, but I understand that they're trying to keep those to the pyro system. But I'd like to see more outposts that are not like, emergency shelters or industrial outposts, but just like privately owned, spread out more in the Stanton system on the planetary and services.
Using the current outpost architecture, like the modular pods that we see nowadays.
If that's all that they have, then yeah, I'm fine with that. Like I said, I would like to see it be a mix of both the colonial and the old style. But at this point, I don't really care what type it is, as long as it's there. Because if you think about it, like outside of the major landing zones on or the already in place outposts that are industrial or survival outposts, there's nothing out there. Like nobody lives out there, so why do you go?
I know they talked about having much of this town and stuff in the Rex, so a while back.
Oh yeah, no, I'm for that, but again, the same thing. Like, haven't any other towns been built that aren't around a wreck? Just like farming communities or.
Well, that's what the homesteads I think are supposed to be.
Okay. But so far, all I've seen are the homesteads are all like are abandoned buildings, correct?
Yeah, for now.
I would say that. Oh, by the way, hello. I would say the reason we see things based only around Rex is because they haven't really worked out the tech, or maybe they just haven't worked out the way the homestead stuff is going to get set up properly. So use what they've got now, and then add the other stuff later as it gets fleshed out.
Yeah, I would like to see some even if it's minor iterations, not everything at once, but just like maybe they start randomly selecting different places and plopping stuff down just to see, like, is this a good location? Is it findable? That kind of stuff. Because right now it just seems very sparse. But like I said, this is something that long term I'd like to see them slowly iterate on.
Yeah.
But you guys are probably right. They probably just they haven't figured out how they're going to do it yet.
At least the problem with some of the moons is that none of them are really hospitable.
Right, like who would want to set up a town or a city on Aberdeen or Ariel? I don't think anybody. It doesn't make any sense there. The only thing that really makes sense are like mining outposts or industrial complexes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they can do like a mining town where it's like a company town that you live there.
Yeah. Another thought I just had, it would be maybe we'll start seeing some industrial or living complexes in some of those caves, especially if they're on those kind of moons that we're talking about, that being on the surface is not hospitable, but maybe down in a cave where they're doing some mining or something. They have a couple habitats or something. That'd be interesting.
I hesitate to do something on Aberdeen just because that's where the prison's located, but something like, Clea or Ida or, Daymar around Crusader or one of ArcCorp or Microtech's moons, yeah. It would be nice to see more places of civilization aside from the main port.
You could do it next to Cluster. Maybe there's an illegal underground mining operation breaking into Cluster.
Are you saying
Down
they're
in the-
feeling the cluster of it all?
The Cluster's getting them.
Wah, wah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it would be. I agree. We do need to see some more variety of civilization aspects of the game, but definitely something that I think they definitely are going to work on or are working on already, but not currently a priority.
Yeah.
But they had
How much
talked about
space
like
do you
the
think?
derelict civilization. But yeah, sorry, Dave.
Yeah, didn't mean to cut you off there. How much
good.
space do you think they should reserve on moons or planets for areas that players can purchase land and build their own little bases there?
That's a good question. I think it should be scaled. I don't know I don't have the numbers in my head yet, but roughly, for the sake of the argument, I would like to see something kind of along the lines of like, if it's a major habitation zone, it can be a denser area. In other words, people can buy closer to each other. But I think the further away that you get, maybe there's more and more distance between the property lines, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because you wouldn't expect an organization or something to put up a base unless there's something valuable there, unless they just wanted that to be their home planet. And even on a really small moon, like uh
Ida?
now I'm blanking on it. The one in Crusader, it's not Yella, it's Sealand.
Stalin, yeah.
Yeah, even just with the space around Sealand, you could probably fit every organization on that moon with space to spare, right?
Yeah. That's a good question, because in some ways you do want to be able to build a town. Like if you're an org, it would make sense that you want to be able to build a town and have like, different org members all living, close by each other. But at the same time, as just a general player, that makes it kind of hard if you want to go try and find, your spot, because that means anyone can come and plop down right next to you. So how would you limit that? That's a good question.
Well, that's kind of a problem in a nutshell. Is that they talked about you put down an outpost and that's great, but that means someone else can come there and now it's their outpost, and then you come back and they have to fight for the outpost, and that's kind of I understand like the PvP gameplay that would arise from that, but at least at the moment, because we don't know how it's actually going to be when it comes out, but at the moment, the concept, it does sound like it's going to be a constant struggle just to have what should be a home on a moon.
So when I'm thinking about dropping stuff down the planet, I'm not thinking about your main organization-based location. I think it'd make more sense to just have a ship and have it out in space somewhere. But if you think of when we get better scanning and there's resource, like piles of resources on planets or moons or whatever that you can find, it makes me think of like transitory bases. It's like somebody scans this moon, this resource is here for this limited amount of time. So you'd bring in your ship, you drop your mining infrastructure building there, you'd go do the mining, and then after the mining's dried up, I would assume that you would remove the base, right? It wouldn't just get left there forever, or maybe someone blows it up eventually, whatever. But I want to. I'm interested in how that's going to play out. You drop your infrastructure, you do the mining, then you pick it up and you take it to wherever the next resource spot is.
I could see that, but I could also see maybe you don't pick it up. Maybe you kind of like, in a sense, you have to uh, not claim. You like when you're done,
Salvage.
utilizing it. Essentially, yeah. So you claim it, not claim it, but you declare. So you would declare to like the local government, wherever that or whatever that region is. Like you declare to them, hey, I'm done here. I'm no longer, because maybe there's going to be something like, you pay taxes for the land use while while you own it.
Don't give
So
them ideas.
that'll be the incentive for you to declare, hey, I'm no longer using it, so I'm not going to pay you taxes anymore on that. And then maybe at that point, that's where that facility become, if you don't pack it up yourself, you're just leaving it behind, then that's where the AI can now start coming out there and doing salvage jobs, or other players, maybe it pops up on salvage missions, like, hey, there's a mission, and players and or AI have the ability to go out there and start salvaging.
Right, like you
That
left
might
it. You
be,
left
Yeah,
your stuff there, and they're like, okay, they just left. New mission just popped up. From Crusader, right? Like someone just left their outpost on Cylon. Go do whatever you want with it, but get it off the face of that moon.
right. Or you've
And-
gone and you did the proper thing and you went and declared, to your local authority, hey, I'm no longer going to be there. I'm not paying taxes for this thing anymore. And then they go, yep, okay, we filed it, and boom, that's what generates, the mission for everyone else of like, hey, this guy just left this behind. It's now, there's an open contract. Go for it.
Or they can do.
Yeah,
You
I
can do
think
something where you keep it there and you rent it out to others.
instead of purchasing, maybe you can still purchase something like permanently own it, but since basically all the moons and planets or whatever are already going to be owned by a corporation or a government, you can lease the land for a period of time, and then after that lease is over, then you either have to take everything that you had there and leave, or you can leave it there and then the government just, or the entity puts out a notice saying, hey, there's stuff here, we need it gone, we'll pay you this much to take care of it for us. It'd be a nice
Yeah.
way to keep things clean, basically. It'd be
Yeah.
a mission-based cleanup service, so you don't get bloated structures all over the place that nobody can do anything with.
And another thing that you could implement with that also is what I was talking about before, the tax system. You could have it where, as the player, when you go to actually, like, purchase or rent or whatever, whatever form you take custody of that area, you need to declare at that time, like, hey, this is going to be a personal use, or maybe this is going to be a business use, and have different tax rates based on that. So like maybe your tax system is higher if you say that you're going in there for mineral resource mining, um, but then that authorizes you to have the air traffic going in and out, or the refining process based there, or whatever. You're creating the waste, or the traffic, so you're paying a higher amount. But if you claim it as a personal use item, then maybe your taxes are a little lower. But if you're caught, you know, doing major mining in that area for resources, then maybe that's a crime stat type thing. I don't know, just I'm thinking of ideas of how you incentivize the different usages. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In space, no one can hear your noisy neighbor.
But they can see your noisy neighbor.
How do you know they're being noisy though? Get off my moon.
Never
By the
Damn
amount
kids.
of dust that they're kicking up into orbit.
That's
But
that's
yeah,
what's
it'll
great about
be
space.
it'll be
is when the
interesting
old
if
man is
they
yelling, just change the radio channel.
yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they balance it out. Just because all the ideas we talked about sound like fun ideas.
But I do agree that there needs to be some kind of a system in place that where the players can't buy everything. I don't mean that like we can't buy, but there needs to be some kind of ratio where, like, if a certain amount of players have bought a certain amount of property rights in an area, when it crosses a certain ratio or threshold, it needs to stop until one of those players leaves, if that makes sense. Because
Well,
don't
that's
want
why I was
to.
kind of pitching the idea of a lease system instead of just buying the land and owning it forever, because that
Yeah,
would mean it's a constant money sink. So you're gonna have to constantly be putting money, which means you have to take missions, makes a gameplay, and then if somebody's off the game for a year or whatever, and their lease expires, then somebody else can just take that land. It makes it available again instead of just it's gone forever.
yeah. But I also I agree with what you're saying, but I'm also thinking of like, let's say there's a location on a moon surface and it's known to have, good mineral rights. But it's spread out over a certain area. What I'm getting at is I'd like to see there be a limitation on how many players can actually own at any one given time within that area. So what I want is I want there to be a ratio of AI owned, player owned, and maybe even not, nobody owns it or it's local government owned um, at any
Yeah.
one given time. So just picking random numbers here, let's say the zone can only fit, 10 zones or, 10 property zones within that mineral area. Have it so that like, when 5 human players own property in that area, 5 of those plots are human owned. No more humans can move into that zone until one of those humans leaves, the stops paying for that area or however you own it. But then also have, there's along with those 5 humans, there's 4 AIs, and there's one zone that's government owned that just nobody's doing anything on. That way you don't
Well,
get
from
like, you know, an org moving in and taking over the whole zone, and nobody else can get in or out of there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. From what I understand and what I expect, that there are not going to be static zones that are just this is going to be a good resource area forever. I think it's all going to be dynamic in the sense that somebody's doing scans, they find a resource deposit, but that resource deposit is only going to stay rich for either a certain amount of time or until a certain number of resources are extracted, in which case it's going to be depleted, and then another one will get spawned somewhere on the planet. So
Yeah,
But
there's
at
not
the
going to
time that
be
it's found, you're gonna have someone say, "Hey, I found something," and then everyone's gonna rush over there. You can have battles over
Right.
it, or you're gonna have some kind of commerce thing instead of battles. You can have "Hey, we found it, but we don't have a use for it, so we'll rent out the space for anyone who wants to go mining here," and so on, or something like that.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
all
so
with that.
And that's
be
how you
a
create gameplay with
dynamic
a location.
push pull. So
Yeah.
it's not just this land space of 100 kilometers on the surface is always going to have this richness. So I don't think you would run into the problem that you're thinking about, call sign, as
Okay.
much.
I hope you're right, because that makes sense what you guys are saying. I hadn't thought about it on that level, and you're right. Like that creates gameplay and keeps it a fluid environment,
Yeah, so you don't run into
that's
the
good.
problem of having this organization owning 90% of the land on a moon, because
Yeah,
there would be no
exactly.
point in owning it because there's not going to be anything on 90% of that area.
That being said, there should be nothing stopping them from just, "Oh, we just want to own this plot of land. There's nothing
True.
there, but we want to own this plot of land."
Well,
But at the
I
same
just
time,
thought
If they
of
want to sink a billion credits uh, every 6 months or whatever into keeping the lease for that land, then I'd say more power to them.
well, I just thought of, we're the test case that we're using is mining, but let's not forget there's going to be things like farming. So
Yeah, true.
you still need some kind of system. I guess taxation might be the answer to that, is, because then if an org wants to take over a whole moon just to, to farm, they're going to have to pay a buttload of money, to keep that process up.
But
So
there's an
I guess
easy way to make that also a transitory system by saying, well, the soil here is fertile, but if you farm on it over a certain amount of time, if you have this many people farming on it, then
true.
the
Yeah.
fertility is going to go down, and then you get another patch of fertile land over there. So you could just use the same concept of mining to kind of incentivize people to move around to different places, so it's not just static.
Yeah. Dry up the water sources things like that.
Yeah.
Storms move through. Yeah. Well, hopefully they come up with something good.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that's got to be worked out before we get anywhere close to any of that.
Oh,
happening.
yeah. For starters,
Yeah.
we have to do the cargo factor, which, is questionable if it's even going to make it in 3.18, given everything else that's coming. But
the just imagining how it's going to work and all the infrastructure and stuff that's in between just the gameplay of farming, it makes me interested, and yeah, I guess that's the only. I love the idea behind it. Just have to see how it actually turns out when we get to it.
it's stuff like this that makes you go, wow, this game really is going to do something amazing when it's actually done.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I got to be honest. I'm kind of in the same boat as Data, but I would add to that, like, I'm amazed at the idea of what this game could be, but at the same time, I think about how long it's going to take to get there.
Yeah.
I have to admit, some days I get a little disheartened because I'm like, man, I'm going to be like 70 years old when they finally, implement that aspect, just because it's going to take so much time.
You assume you're going to be alive.
Yeah, exactly. But, it'll be a fun trip to watch them do it.
World will end in nuclear holocaust before that happens. Okay.
I mean, we
done.
could just be thinking too big scale, too grand.
Possible.
I hope we're not, but
True.
they could implement something that's really tiny and small, like those little. If you go to the outposts, you see some of those little domed sections, and they could say, "Well, this is farming," and you have this little 9 by 9 kilometer square, and you just plop down those little. I hope it's not that, but
Those
Yeah.
little tiny gardens,
that would be the
gardens.
easy, quick out version.
Well, I do think that we will, to some degree, we are going to see that. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that what we see is kind of like the game is out and in release. Let's just say, 6 years from now, the game's out and released.
Being
It
generous.
might have those I'm going to call them minor implementations, but I honestly don't see them stopping ever of kind of behind the scenes slowly working on certain systems once they recognize that there's a community for it in the MMO sandbox universe. I can see the game being released, but they still have a dev team that's working on, like, hey, how do we make farming a better system? Like, we want to, how do we make it a broader system? So I could see them still doing that behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
it's going to have
after-
post-launch support for like the end of time, or at least as much as they'd like it to be. Definitely.
Yeah.
My expectation is that as long as there's money flowing in, there's going to be content flowing out.
And I honestly think the Squadron 42 idea, not how do I put this? So Squadron 42 being a side mission per se, its own episodes, I think that's a good model for creating that money resource long term for the PU. Maybe you have and what I mean by that is, think of Squadron 42 kind of like in a Star Wars context, in the sense that, okay, so they create a Star Wars universe, but then they have the Mandalorian, a series of games that you can play that are based in the PU or alongside the PU, and they generate money that goes back into the PU, and then they go, okay, now we got, we did that, now let's do the Boba Fett series, line. So what I'm getting at is, maybe Squadron 42, because I know it's supposed to have like 3 different game sections. Once that's done, they come up with a different squadron. Like, maybe it's the UEE Marine gameplay.
Right, like because now we went from Navy, now we're playing Marines, and plays every
Right,
branch
exactly.
or something like that.
Yeah, but the money that they generate from that keeps going into the PU to help out the PU, and that'd be a good way to do it without
using Star Citizen as a base for a single player experience to then make money off of the further.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that is kind of the goal at Squatching as it is right now.
No.
Lastly, we mentioned it a little bit, but Data, not you. Also, the Q3 update that talks about hull scraping, the Reclaimer versus the Vulture, no profit advantage yet, only cargo size. Salvage beam can technically be used offensively only when the shields are down. Repair currently limited to minor damages, such as replacing the hull and armor on your ship. It's not going to 3D wing, as we said before. Or an engine. And fresh derelicts will spawn in asteroid field for PvE salvage seek. So this way you don't have to go to a wreck site. You can just fly around an asteroid belt around Yellow and find a wreck and strip wreck clean.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot that they had mentioned that. I think that's a good thing. I like that.
I hope that if they do some of that, some of the wrecks have done them, but I doubt that because
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense for those to have NPCs. Honestly, they're just hunks of ships that were damaged and left out to float.
yeah,
it's a
like-
stopgap, really, just to give content to people who want to.
it's your Radiant quests.
I would like to see them put them out in the Aaron belt, though, not just around Yella, but out where the mining's
Only
going on,
if all the
because
wrecks there are moles and prospectors.
Nice. But I think that would bring gameplay because right now, essentially the only people you'll find out in the Aaron Belt are the miners, and it's like the safe place to go, right? But if you start putting some of those wrecks out there, now you got salvagers going out there too, and then that's that makes for a prettier pot for the pirates to start thinking about. And to me, it's going to add more traffic out there, which I think is good. But that's my take.
I think it's likely that anywhere that an asteroid or a mineable rock would spawn in space, they'll also have.
Yeah, because obviously I think obviously it's going to be the Yellow Belt most prominently, just because that's the east accessible mining location and just asteroid based location. But yeah, I imagine that the Aaron Halo might have them too. It's such a larger asteroid belt that you're probably going to be more sparse. I imagine.
The reason I say that is just technically based. They just add a variable in the way
mining
spawn to say, hey, also spawn this. Yeah.
Yep.
So
essentially just like
propagate to everything that'll spawn a mineable rock.
Like you have a folder that's like the spawn folder of this location. Has mining stuff, and then you add salvage into that folder.
Put a variable in there that's like for every 500 asteroids, there should be a 5% chance of a wreck spawn, kind of a thing.
It would be funny, canonically, all the wrecks that you find in the Yellow asteroid belt are Ninetails ships that we've blown up over the last few years.
That would be pretty funny.
Hammerheads and Gladiuses and M50s and so on.
Don't forget the
Valkyries,
caterpillars, man.
Caterpillars.
Remember the old pirate caterpillars?
No, they're still a thing.
Like 7 at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, they still
remember the old caterpillars when they were first testing out the having freight bounce into space when they exploded, and they like spawned like 100 or 200 boxes that just go float out.
And they go everywhere.
To bring those back. We need those back, and those need to be whiskey bottles.
The good old boys were drinking whiskey.
A caterpillar full of whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of caterpillars,
okay, but it's bad whiskey.
Did you? I don't think you've commented on it yet, but there was the other show that was just this last Thursday, the Bot Whisperer.
No, you mean the Friday show?
Or the Friday show? I like the guy, but I actually call him Mr. Caterpillars. And
why?
when you see the screenshot of him, you'll understand why.
Fucking yeah. Now, give me a sec.
I mean, that guy has got some caterpillars.
Okay. Anyway.
You don't see it?
No.
I mean, his eyebrows are like big,
Oh,
giant,
no.
bushy caterpillars.
Oh, I see.
And every time I see him, they're like the most prominent thing that I see. He's a
All you
great
can see
guy.
is the
Like,
caterpillars.
huh?
Is that all you can see is the caterpillar?
Pretty much. I mean, to be honest, in this episode, he looks almost like he's wearing a Groucho Marx, glasses
A little
costume.
bit. He's just missing the painted on mustache.
Well, in certain light, at certain times, it looks like he has kind of like a mustache fuzz that catches the light, and it looks like almost like he's got it going just at a very basic state. But I'm making fun of the guy, but I do like it. I like his shows. Like, I think the guy's rather informative in general. This episode, not so much, because they were just bullshitting about their past, but usually when he's talking, you get some pretty good information.
I didn't watch Stars Is in Life this week, so what was it about?
It was basically him and Disco just discussing their past and kind of like the general overall concept of AI and like how you create it for games. So they weren't necessarily talking about Star Citizen AI, but just AI dev in gaming in general, if that makes sense.
Actually sounds interesting. I might watch it later then.
Oh, I would say that was maybe only like 30% of the show.
Yeah.
Most of it was them talking, was Disco and him talking about their past and like, going through college and how, the different jobs that they've had in the past, things like that.
At least it's only an hour show, so you can get through it pretty fast and get to the parts when need. We did get some news last week, not last week, literally 2 days ago, with Alpha 3.17.3 in the preview. The notable information from it is loot crates, loot balance changes at all locations. Docking port 04 at Orison Spaceport should no longer warn players for trespassing. And they fixed an issue causing
just that one. That
I know.
problem.
And fixed an issue causing NPC Wallace Klim to have skin artifacts and low-res texture. So, minor fix. It's essentially, I guess, a little bit more than a hot fix patch, but it is rebalancing some stuff with the loot. But yeah, so 3.17.3 is in the PTU, and obviously we'll be getting 3.18 later this year. They also talked about, obviously the roadmap roundup of September 28th was Daymar crash sites were added to release view of 3.18 along with the Grey Cat PT racetrack. Nothing there. Data, you weren't here when we were talking about the racetrack. Any thoughts? Update?
Which track?
Or the PTV, the Grey Cat one?
The go-kart track.
The go-kart, the Mario Kart one.
The updates, right? Where they said they fixed some shortcuts and getting off the track and driving around, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it sounds great. I can't wait to try it out. I'm glad that the vehicles spawn in the track. I don't want to have to. I was not looking forward to having to pick them up and take them there myself. So I'm glad it's all self-contained, kind of like an arcade.
Yeah. Like you go to like Six Flags or something, they have that go-kart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Now we got Tilm29 in the chat saying, "Good to see you, Cast in the Shadows. Hope all are well." Thanks, Tilm.
The thing I'm most interested and looking forward to are the the fixes that I think they have to make to ground vehicle collisions, because right now
Oh,
they are
yeah.
not handled very well. So I'm hoping the physics refactor and whatever they're doing to fix the collision issue is going to make all the ground vehicles more interesting
We also,
to drive.
I wonder, here's something I would love to hear them talk about again. That ground vehicle rework that they showed off a few months ago.
I was just going to ask, is that part of the physics thing that where they were working on how the vehicles move over the ground? Because I agree, like something needs to be done.
Oh yeah, but
So the
I
physics
think-
rework, the physics rework is not based on individual vehicles. So in the XGR Discord, we had one of the devs drop by. I think it's been a couple weeks, but they let us know that the work for the physics is done, but it's up to the vehicle designers to implement it per vehicle. So it's not like the physics rework is just going to blanket change every vehicle
Okay.
automatically. It's going to have to be applied individually to every vehicle that they've got in the game. So, I mean, we
Gotcha.
don't really know how it's going to affect each one yet.
Okay. But
And
yeah,
eventually-
I agree with Mando, because like they need that's what they were showing us, where they were showing, I think it was the Cyclone.
It was the Cyclone, like arcade, the current arcade physics of the Cyclone versus the realistic one that they plan on implementing.
Yeah, I'd like to see something done with that, because I think pretty much all the ground vehicles need some rework in that
Oh, yeah.
aspect. Like, yeah,
They
especially the
all-
tank.
They all act very cartoonish in their
Yeah,
physics handling. They drive up to something and they go bump and they get like pushed back. It's like that's not how that should work.
It's like bumper cars, but with tanks and dune buggies.
Plus, also too, the Cyclone's supposed to have the variable.
Yeah, the manipulated
Oh.
treads on its tires so that you can actually
And the
climb and
Rangers are
stuff.
supposed to have that too, right?
The what?
I think so.
The Ranger bikes have.
Yes,
that too,
yeah, it's
right?
supposed to have the same wheels, so
Cool.
same tires, quote unquote. But yeah, I do look forward to that because it would be nice, and then I can stop making fun of Data with the Cyclone RC. Your favorite
I hate
vehicle?
RC so much.
For those who don't know, it is his favorite vehicle.
No, I hate it. The stock Cyclone is probably my favorite vehicle, but the RC, I can't stand it. I go into it makes me swear the most in Star Citizen. I'll just say that.
Don't lie, you know
Driving
you
the
love
RC
it.
around.
But yeah, it will be nice to actually get vehicles working the way that you expect them to, and not the way they currently handle. Whereas camps, like they're very cartoonish, very bumper car arcadey. We did get a Inside Star Citizen 2 weeks ago that we didn't cover. The was it occupation localization, where they talked about the localization team created less than 6 months ago, comprised of language localization specialists across the world.
Right.
The goal is to translate everything from legal text to in-game UI and words. Localization is usually done later in development, but CIG is getting a head start on it now. The team uses a tool called Star Words to narrate English text before translating it, proofreading, and editing, and sending it back to Star Words and then into game. They will attempt to many audiences in as many languages as possible. More than just simple translation, the goal is to convey the idea and context behind the messages. So essentially, it's not just going to be like a simple, you're in the settings and you select
Direct
the language.
translation.
Like everything, like they want to have everything actually, whatever language I've selected.
That I can say, having lived in several foreign countries and dealt with many foreign cultures, that is going to be an extremely
Really,
hard thing
yeah.
to do, because there's just there's societal differences in everything, and
Yep.
humor and innuendo are two of the hardest things to translate, because there's things that we like as Americans, somebody just says something and it's automatically funny,
Pudding.
and you say that to a foreigner and they just look at you, they have no comprehension
They
of
just look at you like you're stupid.
yeah. And yet they say something that they find immensely funny, and we just look at them like, hey,
Huh?
what? Huh? So to if they're trying to translate references, especially like
Pop
like
culture.
pop culture, or like trying to put a Star Trek or a Star Wars reference into a line, is going to be really hard to do, because it just, yeah, there's translation problems. So I mean, it's great that they're doing it, but man, that is going to be a hard job.
It's also going to be interesting because I don't know what the global. Okay, obviously, we know that Star Citizen's backers, essentially, the community spans the globe, but like, where are they most congregated? Are they going to do something like that? Like, if there's just one person in one country that isn't grouped up with the others, are they going to be missing out? Like, we just don't know the specifics of it.
Yeah, I think they'll probably go for general geographic locations
imagine so.
first, and then you'll see them slowly dial it into by country if they see the need for it, depending on the player base.
But it is good to have a whole team dedicated to that, because that's definitely going to be something you're going to need a whole team for.
Yeah, and you're going to need specialists
Yeah.
too.
Which they did say they have, so. That is going to be one enormous task in the game, and it's already one as it is right now.
Yeah.
I know for a fact they're going to need a German team, they're going to need a team that speaks Hebrew, they're going to need a team that can translate it into Mandarin and all sorts of different things. Russian translates it into Russian as well.
Yeah,
So
Eastern
many
Europe
languages.
is going to be a money sink, because you got a lot of different dialects in such a small area, and they're in small concentrations. But yet, as a aggregate, they are, the Eastern Europe is a pretty large portion of game players.
Yeah. As is Western Europe.
Yeah, but
Or
you've
Northwest.
got larger,
I should say Northwestern Europe.
I guess what I'm like, if you think of Europe like east-west, think of West as like Germany, Sweden, Norway, France,
Yeah.
England, Spain,
Yeah.
and Italy. Those are, you have large groups of people in each one of those countries. But if you look at Eastern Europe, look at Latvia and Estonia.
Oh, okay, I see what
and,
you mean now. Yeah.
So those are small countries,
but higher concentration.
within that country, there's a higher concentration of people who are playing the game. Yet each one of those small countries speaks a different dialect, so you're going to have a specialist for each one of those. That's what I'm getting at.
Yep. Either way, it's I hate saying this,
it's
but
a project.
Not our problem.
It's good that they're doing it now.
Yeah,
they're starting the process now.
As I said, they usually do it later in development, but they're starting now because it's such a huge undertaking in a game like this. It's so big with so many players and so many different locations and languages. They got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially with Squadron, because I imagine they're doing this for both Squadron and the PU, so now would be an ideal time for Squadron based on what we know of Squadron from the various updates over the last year. But yeah, so there's that. We also got the second part of that episode was the Under Siege aspect. The whole point of the Siege of Orson. I got a bit of a post-mortem on it. Siege of Orson was to push FPS, healing, and looting. It gets us a big look at back-end server performance and helped us push towards 100 players per server, which, was a huge thing. They fixed a number of issues with rewards, bugs, griefing, etc. Looking to tighten up dialogue and audio lines, which I did have some issues with during the Siege of Orson event. They want to give players more things to do when joining the event late, so For instance, you're joining the event and they've already gotten to the Brushwood or Heartmoor, whatever the last platform is before admin. You're kind of just left fighting your way through platforms that you don't really need to be fighting your way through, so it would be nice to have some secondary objectives that if you're joining late, so at least you're doing something.
I heard a rumor. This is coming from Astro Pub Show. He thinks that we are not going to see the Horizon event come back for quite a long time, and he implied like a year. So
Okay.
I have no idea what the context is for that, but he seems to think that the whole episode was essentially a data gathering mission for the devs, and we probably won't see that same iteration again. You might see other different types, but he thinks it'll be a long time before we see that thing come back.
That actually makes a little bit of sense, because you think about it, Xenothreat we only get once a year, and that's the biggest event we've had.
It depends, but you do get only a few times. And of interesting note too, they did say that they have planned like smaller kind of bunker-esque missions on the platforms there where Siege of Orison was.
Like they did, so I was going to get into that, where they did talk about in the Q3 update, I believe they mentioned it, but they talked about it before, where they want to have, in 3.18, you're going to have missions that take you to the Solanke, Brushwood, and Heartmoor platforms that the Siege of Orison event took place on. And you're going to be able to do Siege of Orison-like gameplay, but it's going to be in the case of just regular bunker-style missions, where go here, eliminate these hostiles, go here and kill this one high-value target. And you're still going to have all that fun gameplay, but it's not going to be this major event. It's just going to be essentially a Crusader version of the bunker missions. It's a gas giant of bunkers.
That makes sense, because what I've been hearing a lot through the community is that the majority seems to feel that that mission set was too long, and so what they're saying now, that absolutely makes sense, because they've already got the tools in place to be able to create it, that whole mission. But if you break it down into those smaller segments, it seems like that'll be more well received overall by the community, because it's a more attainable goal. Like, I can log in and, hey, I'll just go do this mission, and maybe instead of it taking almost an hour, maybe it only takes half an hour. But it's a smaller area, so it's more achievable, if that makes sense.
I think the first time we did it, it took 3 hours.
Yeah. So, again, the community's like, it takes too long.
Honestly, I liked that it was long, but it, like the first 2 times. Afterwards, it did stretch on a bit. And part of the reason that it was long wasn't so much that it was... It didn't feel... I don't know, there's some issues with the event itself. We've gone over them in the past, but... I am glad that we're getting that more, as you said, like just these bunker style, just one and done missions around these areas, because you're getting that urban combat on a regular basis and not as part of this like whole event thing that's going to tank your performance. There's going to be hundreds of players there, and it's like this way it's a bit more smaller scale and men.
I'm just curious, what do you guys think the chances are that you might see a Siege of Horizon type scenario played out at other landing zones? Do you think that's feasible or doable? And do you think it'll happen?
I think so.
I think so.
I mean,
yeah.
Imagine Ninetales Lockdown, but when Ninetales Lockdown happens, Siege of Orison also happens, to where you now have, especially when down the line when a server can be 500 people, if you have both of these events going on at once, so one with here's the people inside the station or the landing zone fighting against Ninetales or Xenothreat or whoever the fuck it is, and then here's the people outside of the landing zone trying to get in supplies, ships, munitions, what have you, getting civilians out, etc. I think that'd be a very interesting event because that gives you, the player, multiple ways on multiple fronts. Whether you're like, hey, yeah, I'm a combat guy, throw me some heavy armor and a light machine gun and I'm fucking charging in, or hey, whoa, FPS really isn't my fucking thing, but I'll be shuttling these supplies, I'll be a medic, I'll be flying people out to wherever they need to go, what have you. It gives a lot of avenues for play styles.
Yeah.
What landing zones do you guys think would make good candidates for that?
I think Lorville
for the plot line and also for the actual physicality of, being away from the actual landing zone but being part of it, kind of how Horizon is.
So I think Lorville would probably, just based on the way it's built, at least as of now, they are going to be doing a Lorville rework, which they'll be talking about CitizenCon, but which is actually this weekend, isn't it? CitizenCon?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're talking about the Lorville's current landscape. I think allows for the best, obviously outside of Orison, because of how large it is and how like you have these urban districts that are like kind of more the slums, further away from the main building. Lorville itself and Hurston has a history in the lore of, rebellion from the employees and everything with the United Workers of Hurston. Like it used to be this alliance of workers that united against Hurston because of poor working conditions, but then Hurston infiltrated it with some agents to turn it into a terrorist organization so that they have legal action and cause for taking them down the hard way. And you have that avenue of, like, it may not be Ninetales in this taking down Hurston, it's going to be some other group infiltrating, but Hurston's going to be like, hey, we need assistance in eliminating this threat.
These terrorists, yeah. I feel like New Babbage. Oh, God.
Okay. I don't think it makes sense to have large scale a mission like they had with Orson on a landing zone. I think it would make more sense what they did with Orson, having it 20, 30, 100 kilometers away, because just the interactions that you would have with people trying to land at the landing zone, getting caught up in the fray. Smaller scale personal missions that you could take, I think, would make more sense.
What about if they had something at New Babbage? Because on that note of, hey, the spaceport has to be at least a little ways away from where the action is, so that people just trying to come and go, spaceport's a little ways away. You could have AA defenses, air quotes, AA defenses in the city itself, normally meant for if bad guys come around and they've done something to them to where, okay, now you can't fly in there, gives you a reason to go and start using ground vehicles, and you could have you could have some of those AAs, maybe that's your objective similarly, but the actual AA bunkers or whatever controls them are smaller but more numerous, so that way it's not as long of a mission as Orison was.
I'll do you one better, because actually you just you reminded me of something on Microtech that would actually make it better than Lorville, and that is their manufacturing facilities dotted around the planet that they showed off in CitizenCon. Like, those are a few clicks, 100 clicks away from the main city. So, and the landing zone. So you can have some criminal organization have taken over the manufacturing plant, and you're hired to go in and clear them out.
Following that idea, I think New Babbage is probably the better area to do it, because it has the very big garage, so you can spawn all kind of vehicles you need and load them up efficiently and quickly and just get it going. Whereas Hurston is, I've never tried to spawn a tank outside the gate, but just getting to the spawn terminals is just takes so long.
Yeah, I haven't been to Hurston in a long time. I just mentioned Hurston because of the story aspect, but thinking about it, New Babbage is a better option just because you have a very simple layout. Okay, manufacturing facility got taken over, they need us to clear it out. and their manufacturing facilities are a decent ways away from the main landing zone, so you're not impacting players coming and going doing the regular game. Though it would have been cool to have, Lorville, you're seeing like fireworks going off somewhere near the like in the lower slums district of Lorville. You're seeing a bunch of explosions and attacks. But
I mean, that's still completely possible, though. Just have it scaled down to a
yeah,
single,
but I agree what you
single
said.
group
Scale it down
missions.
to something
Yeah.
where it's like a
how
personal
do you-
mission.
Here's a question that I have about Lorville specifically, because of its lore in the game of such a tyrannical system. Do you think that might have an impact on how players are willing? Are the players willing to go and support the government, or will you find that more players are wanting to play opposition force to the local?
How much are they paying? No, okay.
Yeah. So
No, but I'm
probably
glad
the
you brought
biggest,
that up, because that's why I mentioned Lorville, because like it does make you that like, well, which side do I choose? Do I help in invading and attacking Lorville,
well,
or do
the
I
other
help
thing you have
defend
to
it?
take into
Because
consideration.
yeah,
Sorry, I just want to answer this real quick. Lorville is still it has its own law, so if you are the opposite, it's going to make you a criminal.
Yes.
So that's one thing.
no,
you
but
have
it does
to
give
take
you
into
that moral, like
consideration.
story-wise, it does give you that moral implication. Like, what are you supposed
Yeah.
to do versus what are you doing?
And possibly too, down the line, once the reputation system is far more filled out and robust than what we have now, to where you might have a UEE reputation slash crime status, and then you might have a Lorville slash Hurston crime status reputation, to where, hey, there, like you were talking about before, there's some kind of riots or fights going on where some of the more militant workers are rebelling against Hurston, the company and the planet, and causing chaos. And you might go and be like, well, hey, they're fully justified in what they're doing. Ooh, a skunk outside. Hi, skunk. Um, and you might think they're fully justified in what they're doing. And so you go and help them. And even though you are acting in a criminal manner against the planetary government in this case, but you think this is the right thing to do, you might have a criminal rating or a criminal status in Lorville or on the planet of Hurston. But once you leave the planet, the UEE might go and say, hey, we aren't necessarily going to go and punish you for those actions, or you might have a lesser reputation hit by those actions than you would if you did those same actions against the UEE itself.
I'm hoping for that. To me, that's what the reputation system should do, is
Yeah.
is help you in those kind of situations, and it stops it, your local crime from being like you said, a UEE level, system-wide wanted warrant.
Yep.
It also, you think about like story-wise as well as gameplay-wise, where you go, okay, you're doing this thing against Hurston Dynamics Corporation, but you have really good standing with the UEE and the advocacy. You help them out a lot, and you're a good guy, good citizen, whatever it is. So all of a sudden, like, hey, because they should, corporations would be working with the government as part of whatever, and like, hey, they're attacking us. It's like, what? That guy? No, he's such a good guy. But yeah, you'd have that, different standings. It might, and that thing would probably affect your standing, but depending on what your standing is, it might not affect it drastically. I don't know. But it's definitely interesting to think about, and that's why I think Lorville would be a good example of doing that type of gameplay there. Obviously, maybe not as they said, not as an event, but as like a smaller mission. But the repercussions of doing that mission and which way you decide to go about it, right? 'Cause you can have the personal mission be the one that's going against Hurston, and the general mercenary mission is the one for Hurston. decide which one you want to do. And maybe it pops up not every 5 seconds, but maybe it's like every 10-20 minutes. Like a bit more of a longer respawn time between the missions spawning. Maybe you have to go to a mission giver for it.
Sorry, I didn't jump in on.
No, I was just saying maybe you have to go to a mission giver for it. Like, kind of spitballing how it would work.
I was thinking I'd like to see it tied into the reputation in the sense of like, so if you go and you take the missions from the mission giver in Loreville, then maybe that you do enough of those missions, and that's where it pops up for you. Like, hey, we need, we're looking for private contractors to come in and help us because we're having this problem. Whereas if you've never taken that, never done that mission, then maybe you get the opposing sides of, hey, we're trying to infiltrate, Hurston. Are you interested? Kind of a thing. It basically just, I don't really care about the iteration, but I think it should be tied into what missions you've taken in the past should have an impact on which, in those kind of scenarios, which missions you're offered, if that makes sense. Whether you're taking the positive or the negative side, or blue versus red side, however you want to term it. I don't want to imply either side is bad or good.
Another good location for like a Siege of Orison style mission, whether it be like a regular mission or an event. I think maybe a regular mission would be better, but ArcCorp. Doesn't have to be at Area 18 at all, but it can just be in some building near Area 18. It can be in Area 11 or Area 17 or Area 20.
Yeah, but to me that would require quite a bit of rework because you have to create.
Well, they'd have to give interiors for the buildings. That's really the major thing.
Well, not just the interior, but how to navigate to there, because you got to have shuttles.
Yep.
And then depending on what type of mission it creates, are they going to create navigable roadways that you can drive vehicles to the location? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's why I said maybe better as a regular mission, just because you fly down there, enter the building from the rooftop landing pad, and
yeah, that would be really easy.
Right. Because all you need to do is you can just copy and paste the building interiors from Orison, put them into that building. Obviously, change up the architecture, colors, maybe. There you go. So I do think
just make it happen, Debs.
CIG, get on it. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are they always doing?
Well, one other thing too with the reputation, like what missions you might get being based on reputation. It would make sense to me that for some events, it wouldn't matter at all what your reputation is. So, for example, Nine Tails Lockdown, especially if that gets tied to there's an external Nine Tails Lockdown, internal, you have a Siege of Orison kind of thing going on. Anyone in the area should be getting notified of that, either of, hey, stay the hell away, there's a lot of danger here, just unless you're coming here to help, you just want to stay off. Or B, if you are a criminal enough, you probably still got the general announcement of just, hey, there's trouble here, but Nine Tails will probably be like, hey, yeah, you want to come over here and help us, like, bust them heads in?
Like, your reputation is going to determine whether you get that CDF call or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, the CDF call would probably be going out on a general ban to everyone. You might have some additional messages going out of, hey, you worked for us, we really could use your help in doing these specific things. But there'd at least be a general message of just, hey, everyone be aware, this is going on, please be very cautious in this area. Just like there would be if there was like an active hostage situation. You'd have it on every single news station in the area of going, hey, by the way, everyone be aware this is going on, be very careful, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Emergency broadcasting station test, exactly.
But then other ones, so let's say if you had like a Hurston Dynamics versus the Workers' Party kind of thing going on, if you aren't in with either of these groups and something's going on, you might get a general message from like a news station that, oh, there's some riots going on at the city of Lorville, and that might be all you hear because you don't have enough reputation for either of these groups to really go and reach out to you, and neither group really wants to just be grabbing general people off the streets for fear that they're infiltrated. So
Yeah.
you might not see anything going on. Now you could still head over to the area if you have a friend who's in there. They might go and be able to share the mission with you, and then you can do it from there. But if it's just you and just your rep, and you aren't in one way or the other, you're just seeing there's general chaos going on. You might just be like, hey, I'm just gonna get my cargo and get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
down
that'd be
for that.
cool stuff. Because then also too, you can have events going on that are catering to multiple people, and the people who go, hey, I really couldn't care the fuck less about this event. You don't have to. You don't have to be forced or kind of coerced into participating with this if this isn't your style of gameplay. Just feel free to go. Now, the area might be very dangerous, so you might want to avoid this specific area. But beyond that, if you're doing your normal gameplay, go do your normal gameplay.
Well, I also like the idea of, you're a player, you're not in the know, you haven't done the missions or whatever, yet you're seeing other players are running around and ship traffic's increased, and there's an increased presence. It's
All
part
of
of
a sudden,
that
there's a
immersion
javelin
of like
overhead.
what's going on. Like it to me that makes for a more immersive environment in general, and would make me want to go and seek out knowledge versus if I'm always told everything that's going on nearby, then I don't, after a while you kind of become uh, saturated and you just start ignoring everything because, oh, well, I'm told everything that I need to worry about, so who cares? Whereas if
Yeah,
you don't
there's no
know,
need to dig into things or
yeah,
investigate to kind of go, hey, what the heck's going on over here?
exactly. Yeah, I'd be down with that.
Man, and that's a really good point too. In that, I mean, imagine if you're a player doing, let's say you're delivering a ship to a platform or a bunch of crates to a platform with like a cargo ship, and like Siege of Orison is going on while you're delivering this shit. You might be like, hey, I'm just getting the fuck out of here once I drop these boxes off. You might be like, hey, I'm gonna maybe you're like, hey, there was an extra reward for getting these boxes delivered in a certain amount of time. I'm gonna skip that fucking reward. Fuck this shit. I'm gonna sit in the fucking spaceport until this shit is over. Fuck no, fuck this.
Yeah,
Or you might be like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna directly get fucking involved in this. I'm gonna be scooting around, transporting players, dodging laser fire, whatever the fuck. Yeah, however you want to do it.
yeah. But I still I think the core baseline of that has to be kind of what you're talking about, which is there does need to be general information, and I like your idea, like it's on the news channel. So like, you just you kind of learn as you're playing the game that, hey, maybe I need to keep CNN. I'm just picking CNN.
Yeah.
I don't actually watch it, but
Maybe
I need to keep
Stanton News
CNN
Network.
turned on in the background whenever I'm flying my ship, so I'm aware at least that there's those general, news bulletins of awareness for me, for my situational awareness.
Yeah. I honestly, that'd be really cool in that you're just going around, you're kind of doing some fucking box deliveries or exploring a cave, and all of a sudden, breaking news: terrorist attack at Orison with apparently thugs who
Oh,
may or may
gotta
not be
go.
part of the Nine Tails attacking transports or whatever, and you're like, oh shit, hey, stuff's going on, cool, finally something interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Because also too, like I imagine for at least for some organizations, I mean, for example, you have Xenothreat going on, and we're talking like way down the line when it's like fully fleshed out. There's probably extra events that go into the before and after of what we have already seen with Xenothreat. If you're really good in and buddy with the UEE, I can imagine that you might be getting, for example, missions of, hey, you're one of our top contractors here for ship combat. We've got a javelin that's been going and engaging in anti-piracy action in this area, and we're receiving some credible threats that the resupply we're sending out for this thing is being directly targeted by the pirates, by these criminals. So you go in and see if you can round up any of your buddies too, and we want to keep this kind of on the down low so as not to alert them that we're on to them, but we really need to go and protect these shipments and make sure that they arrive safely here. And, boom, you're rolling already right into Xenothreat.
Yeah.
And it's like, and of course, if you are not in with the UEE, you're never going to get that message. The first thing you're going to hear is, hey, yeah, we sent out 50 cargo ships all on various paths. We had mercenaries that are real good with us. We hired 5 or 10 of them to go and sit with the most obvious paths because we figured that's really where we're going to see the most enemy action coming in from. The rest of them were trying to get by just on stealth. And oh shit, they had more fighters than we thought they would. Oh fuck, everyone is getting hit. Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you could have some fudging of the numbers in the background to make it both enjoyable for the players running the escort missions, but also too to actually let the whole Xenothreat mission roll in. Maybe there's some other cargo ships or something else to happen. Maybe some of the cargo ships deviated from the flight path and got blown up. Whatever. There's ways to do it without making the players escorting lose, but still have the actual Xenothreat event with the wrecks and all that stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of variations.
Plus, also too, I'm assuming once you especially get in, at that point where the UEE themselves are actively going, "Hey, can you help us with this stuff?" I also anticipate that there's going to be some pretty fucking sweet rewards that they're offering for you, not just money wise, but gear wise.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I just was watching Salty Mike, and he has a Sunday show, I think it is, or maybe it's Saturday. Anyways, it's usually about an hour long, and he was discussing how to improve like the participation of how to get the players interested more in doing stuff without actually giving out rewards per se, like monetary rewards. And one of the ideas that was brought up that I thought was really interesting, and I kind of like it, is the idea that maybe you do certain missions and you don't necessarily get a big reward, but what you do get is essentially behind the scenes in the game, you get a tag, and what you'll have is as you're walking around in the local town, maybe the shopkeeper's like, "Oh, hey, I remember you. Like you helped save my coffee cart. Here's a free cup of coffee on me, buddy." Like, little things like that. And as you progress and you do more and more of that, you're getting more of those tags. And if you think about it, like you're walking with a buddy who just joined the game, and he's, after a while, he's like, "Hey, how come everyone keeps greeting you and saying hi to you? Like, they don't do that to me." And you're like, "Oh, well, it's because I did this, this, and this." And it's a way of getting the player interested in doing things without actually giving him, money or weapons or equipment. Just I thought it was kind of a novel idea. I'm sure it's being done in other games, but it's the first time I've really heard about it, and I just thought that makes sense. Like, and it's such a simple thing to do.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, especially once you have medical gameplay going on to tier 1, tier 2 to the point where you have a Siege of Orison mission going on and you're finding wounded civilians or Crusader security, or, you know, what have you, and you're going, hey, I'm gonna get, you know, this guy's in real bad. He's not gonna go and last much longer. I'm gonna go and pull him and our couple of wounded squad mates here. We're gonna go and grab our walking wounded and head back to an extraction point and get these guys out of here, and then I'll come back with a fresh group. Stuff like that, and you know, and hey, that shopkeeper, now that, you know, this is a week later, everything's been put back to normal for the most part. They go, hey, you fucking saved my ass. And alternatively, if they were to perish, maybe their brother, cousin, sister, son, daughter, whoever the fuck takes over the shop for them. But now that they are saved and alive, like, hey, you pulled my ass out of the fire. As long as this shop is here, you're getting a 10% discount on anything you buy from us. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Really simple little things like that. You know, that just seems like such a no-brainer. Once I heard it, I was like, duh.
Like,
That's,
it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Or like the
No,
UE. Okay.
Oh no, it's just I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the devs do something like that and look into the different branches that could become. You know, it doesn't even need to, like, maybe that's one aspect of it, but then there's other things like you get you know, if you become a big enough person, you get a title or something. I don't know what the titles would be, you know, because we're not based on a feudal system, but you know, it's there's just so many different permutations that could take, and I'd be interested to see that.
You get the title of Inquisitor.
Title is He Who Shall Not Be Named. But anywho, I think we put the others to sleep.
No, I've been listening and multitasking. I agree. It's funny because like those are simple. As you said, like it's simple but effective means of rewarding the player for him doing a good job. It's essentially what RPGs do. You kept this character alive in the RPG. Now he's grateful and it help you. Or
well, I mean, for example, for those who might not know, Skyrim. When you go and play Skyrim, and you go and you choose either what's the Imperial guy or the Stormcloak guy, and they go, yo, hey, follow me, no, follow me, kind of bullshit. Whichever one you follow, will then go and you go through the whole little tunnel and cave and all that bullshit. You get to Riverwood. They'll actually tell you, hey, by the way, my family, whoever it is, because they both have relatives there, really appreciate you helping me out there. Feel free to help yourself to pretty much any loose stuff around. So it's like, if you help out the Imperial guy, I think his uncle is the smith in Riverwood. So it's like a lot of the iron ingots there, you can go and now just take those. Those are just, have at it. Go for it. It's like, sweet line. And then with the Stormcloak guy, I think there's a farm that like his sister owns or something like that. So all the crops there, you can go and take that. All the stuff in the house that's like lower, you know, if there's like expensive stuff like jewelry, nope, sorry, that's still stealing. But stuff like that, to where just, hey, you know, any of the small stuff, hey, you know, feel free, help yourself. The least I could do because I'm alive and I like being alive. Or even things like on the earlier note of the UEE. You getting good with that? I mean, and we've talked before, and CIG have talked before that, hey, if you get in with the UEE, you're going to get access to some military equipment that your average person won't be able to do, or they might have to go to the black market or buy it used, and it's going to be a lot more expensive versus the military themselves going, hey, yeah, we actually don't need this anymore. It was going to be scrapped, but we'll let you get it for cost or less because it's used, whatever. You know, have at it. Here's your Idris M upgrade or Idris K upgrade kit. fuck, I guarantee that'll happen. But even
That
just
better
stuff
be like a capstone, though. I don't. That needs to be like your level 20 capstone, not
no, that's
level
that's when you
5.
upgrade your javelin to full military spec. But even just stuff like, hey, you get, because bear in mind too, not only will have like ship upgrades and components, but armor upgrades and components too. So it's like they might very easily have armor upgrades and components, because that's going to be a thing, that are better than what you can get off the shelf. Like, hey, yeah, we got a spare box of these that we don't really need currently. We'll let you have those for same as what the government goes and pays from the factory for them. Fuck yeah. As opposed to, if you're going out and buying shit, this is top tier shit. But here, since you're with the UEE, they're making you pay like mid gear level prices. Hell yeah.
You need to have sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe not even because again they've said reputation will adjust over time, so that it'll slowly, if you aren't doing anything to it, it will slowly go and kind of very slowly, very gradually go back to a 0 point of, we don't hate you, we don't like you, we're indifferent about you. So you would have any tiers of reputation that you get, you're going to have to at least to some degree maintain those. So you could also have it to where instead of just an item that you get, here's a gun, here's some armor, here's a component, here's a whatever, you might get it instead to where, hey, you now have access to C-class military surplus. So you can go to any UEE storage depot, and you go and let them scan your ID here, and you can buy A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, etc. from the list here, and you're going to have that access until and unless your reputation falls below X point, at which point, hey, sorry, you aren't our friend enough anymore that we'll give you access to our cool toys here. And then from that store, now you can go and buy that cool shit that otherwise you might not be able to get, or would be super, super rare to get, or a really big hassle. You have to go and like find it and then repair it, whatever. And that would be armor, weapons, components, ships even. Hey, yeah, you could go and get that nice Anvil Carrack that's a civilian class, but hey, since you've really helped us out in a lot of places, you've been our friend for months, pulling our asses out of the fire, we're going to give you access to the military class Carrack that has these extra things on it or whatever. It has super stealthy plating on there, so you could practically go anywhere and they're not going to see you until they're within visual range of you. Fuck yeah.
I'm okay with that, but I want it to be something that really has to be worked towards, not just hey, everyone has access to this, because that just...
Oh yeah, no. It would have to be something that would be like a long term, or at least something like that. Of like, hey, here's an upgrade kit for the Carrack that makes it super stealthy. Something that would be a very high end reward that you would get from it. It wouldn't be something where you've done 10 or 20 missions for them and now you have it. It'd be like you've done 200 to 400 missions for them, kind of thing. And even then, it might be, you can choose this, or you can choose this, along with some other rewards and stuff here. And then later on, you'll get the choice of those other rewards again if you keep helping us out. Or you can skip, or you can skip both of the choice rewards and get a lot more money or whatever.
Yeah, just variations or something. But yeah,
Yeah.
as long as it's not something that's easy to get for everybody.
Well, and plus also too, like for example, so let's going on this idea of a Carrick stealth upgrade kit. You could, again, you're just exploring or you're on the black market. You might go and run across this. Yeah, and we'll assume this is military specification. This isn't something that civilians can just go out and buy, or at least if you do, it's going to cost you a ridiculous amount, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like you might go and come across it. You're exploring and you come across a wrecked Carrack from the military from back when they were still in active military service more, and it has these this kit on there, and you salvage what you can. You're gonna have to repair the kit upgrade, so essentially you have to probably put in some materials, time, money, etc., to repair the kit from the parts, the salvage you had got from it, into okay, now this is a functional, usable kit that I can apply somewhere. But because that's military grade, if that goes and gets you get in a huge fight and your carrot gets blown up, you're either going to have to go and pay the military a pretty shiny penny here to go and maintain that because, hey, look, you aren't really our buddy. You aren't really supposed to have this, but we'll look the other way. But it's going to cost you if you want us to go and put this back on here because,
that was the previous supply
it.
sergeant that you knew. He's no longer here.
Yeah. Or however they want to do it, but it's like, okay, you found it or you bought it on the black market, you have it, but to maintain it, it's going to cost you. But if you get in through the UEE and they go, hey, yeah, we'd be happy to go and offer this to you, those maintenance fees. So hey, yeah, your carrot got fucking taken out. They'll be like, hey, no problem. We'll be happy to go and just keep applying this upgrade for you here while you're in good with us. Same thing too if you have, I'm sure Nine Tails or other criminal organizations will have similar to where they'll have stealth kits for like cargo shielding and pirate kits and stuff that your average person won't be able to get. And your criminal orgs, though, because you're in real good with them, they go, oh yeah, we'd be happy to make these modifications for you. We know that you're going to use these to screw over that stupid UEE and the advocacy. Fuck those guys. You keep fucking them over, we'll be happy to go and keep applying these upgrades to your ship here. Because that'll need to keep this reputation going in order to go and keep my gear, my good stuff here.
Yeah, all good possibilities.
NPCs you helped go, you have saved our lives. We are totally grateful. No, but I do want to see the reputation have more of an impact on the game. Because we've talked about this in the past, and CIG's talked about it in the past, and it would definitely be cool to have that essentially concept be more realized. As you said, you do this for this faction or for this group or person, and you get rewards for it. But it means that you're probably screwing over someone else, and they're not going to want to talk to you.
How could you? I trusted you.
Yeah, my only concern with the reputation system is that the wider community is not going to like it because I think there's a large group of gamers out there who don't like being held responsible for their actions. They want
it's
games.
A small but vocal group.
I hope you're right, but I guess what I'm getting at though is I just hope that they aren't vocal enough for CIG to backpedal on a good system.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I actually saw. I was actually really surprised We've talked about murder hobos and ganking and griefing and what is and isn't griefing before about this kind of stuff. I saw a post on the subreddit because I'm browse occasionally on the subreddit when I can, for Star Citizen, and someone was noticing, yeah, wow, there seems to have been a fairly recent uptick in the amount of kind of just asshole players who are assholes just for the sake of being assholes. You know, doing stuff like sitting just outside an armistice zone in an eclipse and just shooting down anyone that tries to fly out of it because they fucking can. And then when you call them out on their bullshit, rightfully so, you know, they just go and throw stuff, well, you're not in an armistice zone now, so I can kill you. It's like, yeah, however, one, you're still being a dick and deserve to be called out on that, and two, this isn't really intended gameplay. It's not intended for players to go and just shoot down anyone that comes by, because when systems are fully in place, you'd immediately have system security and station security coming after your ass and probably lighting you up. Unless you have a full fucking armada on you, you're going down pretty fucking quick, realistically speaking. But because those systems aren't in place right now, you have a lot of people that just want to get their jollies off on ruining other people's days. And there was a fair amount of support and calling out of these kinds of murder hobo ganking kind of play styles, in that, you know, realistically, in Star Citizen, should murder hoboing be a air quotes legitimate gameplay style? I think so. However, doing so should be the hardest of hard modes in terms of your gameplay, because realistically speaking, again, this is with a fully realized reputation system. Realistically speaking, obviously, one, most players aren't going to want anything to fucking do with you because you're just going around fucking killing people for fucking kicks and giggles. Most lawful security is going to want to fucking shoot you on sight. See the above reasons. And most criminal organizations also will want to shoot you on sight because you're bad for business. Criminality in the organized sense is a business. And you want, in a general sense, repeat customers. If I'm a pirate, I don't want to go and fucking blow up ships because too many ships blow up. No one's going to fly this route anymore. Shit, now I have to actually work at what I'm doing here. And if I keep going and blowing up ships, eventually the UE is going to come in and punch my ass out through my nose with a fucking Idris or a Javelin, or 15 of them. You want to go and hold up people and be like, hey, yeah, you give us 10% of your profits here, or 10% of your cargo, whatever, and we'll escort you just outside the range of the station here. Make sure none of these darn ruffians in the area get to you, because we're just upstanding fellows who would hate to see someone like you hurt. Kind of shit. That's a pirate. If you're just blowing people up and killing them for giggles, I mean, you know, realistically, if you go around in real life and just murder people randomly, even if you're in some of the most lawless areas here, no one's going to want anything to do with you. Not regular people, not lawful forces, and not criminal forces, because you're a loose cannon. You're bad for business no matter which way you cut it. And so it's like, if you want to play that way, sure, absolutely, but you should have very, very few places that will even bother to go and let you land there, because fuck you. You're a homicidal maniac. Why the fuck would we ever let you land here?
I agree with what you're saying. More the direction I was going in is that I'm worried that there's a group of people out there who are game players that don't like
Consequences.
missing, basically FOMOs. They're scared. They don't like playing games that, oh, well, you know, I gave you choice A and B and you chose A, so you'll never know what B is because you chose A. And that's what I'm worried. I don't want CIG to back down on. Is I want it to be a system where you made a choice. Now you have to live with that choice. I don't want a game that unless you're going to start the game over and then choose option B this time, you know, okay, you're playing the game over again. You started from scratch like everyone else. Okay, no problem. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game dumbified to the point where everyone gets to choose every option in their same character game line, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And now I will say though, I think with at least what CIG have said before, it would be at least on a theoretical level possible to air quotes do everything on a single character. Just
if given enough
it would
time.
take yes, if given enough time, because you would have to go and work your reputation from, hey, the UEE and the UEE military think I can do no wrong, to they want to go and kill me on sight and my name is fucking mud anytime they hear it.
Yeah. No, I'm okay
You're
with
gonna have to
that,
work
but
that.
because that the players having to put effort into it. What I don't want is just where it's, I chose option A, I ran through that mission, and then I turned around and went back and I chose option B, and the next day and ran option B, and now I know the outcomes of both those. Boom, boom,
It'd be
done.
like if you had
Walk
Siege
away.
of Orison and there was an option to go and help the Ninetales side of things, and one day or 1 week you go and you choose, hey, I'm gonna help the lawful side, and the next time, because no one ever remembers anything, I'm gonna go and help the Ninetales side and see what both of them give me. No, if you were to help Ninetales the first time, the lawful forces are going to, you land, they're going to be, hey, you're going to fucking jail.
Yeah,
We aren't going to
your
fucking trust you with
reputation
anything.
should last long enough that it doesn't allow that option B until a very long time, and you've gone through steps to change your reputation, and then who knows? You make all the right selections again to get all the way back to that A or B choice, and then okay, yeah, you can choose B, but you've spent 30 hours to get back there. I'm okay with that. I'm not 30 is just a random number that I'm pulling out. An extended amount of effort and time was put in to allow that difference. Okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
So, but anywho, on that note, I think I'm going to duck out here because I'm pretty much done.
Yeah, I also gotta get going, guys.
How dare you?
Once again, good talk, and look forward to next week's show. Have a good night, all.
Mando said there wouldn't be one next week.
Oh, that's right.
I don't think there's gonna be one. Hold on. Let me double check right now if there's gonna be, because I don't know what
How
the
could you
schedule
not
is.
do one for fucking CitizenCon, Mando? How fucking could you?
Guys, hear something?
Cheeky fucking breaky.
Yeah, okay. There's not gonna be one next week.
Why?
Well, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks then.
That's why. All right.
Have a good night.
Cole?
You too.
What?
All right.
You joined a Cole?
See you guys.
Yeah, next it's the Jewish holidays, so there's gonna be no episode next week. But should be actually. There even gonna be a week after that either? Oh, come on! Okay, so we're not gonna have another episode for another 2 weeks.
Gosh damn! And we just took what, 3 weeks off here?
2 weeks. Again. No, it's only been a week off.
No, it hasn't. It's been like 2 or 3 that we haven't done a show.
Yes, it has. Last episode we did was the 19th. I'm pretty certain.
Which is like 3 weeks ago.
It feels like 2 weeks because 2 Inside Star Citizens have come out since then. Because there's one comes out the same week after the podcast, and one came out before we did the podcast this week. So 19th was the last time we did it, and then today's the 3rd. The next time we'll be able to do a podcast is the 24th. I don't pick the fucking dates. It's the lunar calendar, man.
That's what they all say.
But yeah, we're not going to be able to. Next time we'll be live will be October 24th.
You don't want to do something just for.
I mean, we can. You know what? We could do an episode between then and now. Just it won't be on Monday.
Yeah.
Like we can do
Let's
Wednesday
do one
or
on,
Thursday next week.
What about doing on Saturday? Like this Saturday?
Like Saturday night, because we can't do Saturday.
Yeah. I.e. CitCon.
That works. Saturday night. Why not? I say let's do it. Saturday night.
Go them all. What?
Party like it's
1991?
$29.99.
Ba-ba-ba.
But yeah, no, let's do episode 82 on CitCon, the night of CitCon. It wouldn't be CitCon Eve because that would be before CitCon. This is going to be around after, right? Because CitCon's on Saturday.
It's post CitCon Eve.
Yeah, it'd be like a right after reaction and review of it. Should be fun. But yeah, for those who don't know, CitizensCon2952 this Saturday, October 8th. And they're going to be talking about 4.0, they're going to be talking about the Loreville rework, they're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. There's no keynote, which means there's not going to be a demo. It's probably going to be more
so they say.
It probably.
We'll see what actually happens.
Yeah, they could just be like a, haha, we said there wouldn't be, so we can surprise you, haha. But, who knows? I mean...
I assume that we're going to see gameplay.
Yeah, like we're probably going to see Loreville rework. We're probably going to see some Pyro stuff. They're going to do this whole tour of Pyro to show us some stuff like that. I know Data and I are both kind of iffy on that, just because we want to be surprised and explore it ourselves. But I guess it depends on how they do the whole tour. Like, is it a lore tour, or is it a... Like, here's every nook and cranny that you're going to be coming across, because then that's kind of defeats the purpose of exploring it yourself.
Details.
By the deep shore. Yeah, it's CitizenCon this weekend. What time did they say? 11 a.m. Eastern.
Dun dun dun. Dang, I'll have to wake up early.
I'm gonna have to literally watch it all, or most of it, right before the podcast. Because Saturday is Shabbos.
Why not just do a watch party with it?
Because there's gonna be Shabbos. I'm not gonna be able to be online.
What?
Yeah, I gotta do the Jew thing.
You can do this too. You're doing it wearing a headset with like your phone in front of you. No, too much.
No, it'd be like, oh no, it's okay. I'll leave it on before Shabbos starts. This way, it's going to end up being like a 26-hour live stream. YouTube wouldn't even allow that.
Darn TubeYube. Those dirty penguins.
BoobTube. The digital BoobTube. The original one was just a box in your living room.
Not the...
Yeah, Journey to 4.0, they're going to do an in-engine tour of many planets and moons of the upcoming Pyro system, process of a mission archetype, focus of deduction and storytelling. That sounds good. Reimagining of underground facilities, learn how the master modes will impact the flight experience for the PU and better define ship roles for all vehicles. First glimpse at the Loreville rework, how the upcoming resource management system will affect combat, player homesteading, and true multi-crew gameplay, and finally discover the latest vehicles throughout the pipeline, including concept ship. So that's what we're getting with CitizenCon this year, so far that we know of.
It's a lie.
But I mean, some of it sounds, even if there's no keynote or no gameplay demo, it still sounds good. It just means that they're divesting less time to CitizenCon and more to actually developing the game, because that was the big issue. And it was the reason why they also dropped Gamescom showcase, because it's too much of a time drain. Sounds like it'll be a fun weekend. I say that, of course, but tomorrow night is Judgment Day. The end is nigh. No. Oh no. Yeah, I think that's it. Anything else?
Dun dun dun.
Anything interesting in the leak server that I missed over the last week or two? Cam? Ooh, Cammy Poo. Anything interesting in the leak server over the last few days? Taking your silence as a no.
I actually just can't actually hear you right now.
Uh,
There's a really loud audio.
what loud audio?
I'm trying to boot up Fallout 4 here real quick to check something, but it's being bitchy at me.
Oh, so essentially the main menu's making you deaf.
Yes. Yes, that's literally it. Like, bum, bum,
Yep.
bum, bum, like, I get it, thanks. Fuck. Jeez.
I was asking if there's anything new happening in the leaks Discord server, but you told I can just check
Not
myself.
really, honestly. Like, there's talks of a 3.17.2 Evo test going on with, like, some tweaks and fixes and bullshit.
Okay, so we already talked about that earlier with the 3.17.3,
Yeah. Pretty
which
much.
is pretty much just a glorified hotfix patch, but it's going to rebound some of the loot, so. Which maybe, hopefully, will tide things over between 3.18. 3.18 still going to have. Here's a real big kicker: is 3.18 still going to have a database wipe if cargo refactor is not in it?
Well, have they said cargo refactor is not in it?
No, people are speculating that it won't be because it's such a big patch and they haven't said anything on cargo refactor in a while that they think it's going to be dropped.
I would assume until we get told otherwise.
Yeah, I agree.
assume
I'm just
that we're
saying, do you
still
think
gonna-
that they would do a patch wipe? Because I don't think they would, since the whole reason they're doing it is because of their cargo refactor.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends. The reason we were told that we would get a database wipe was because of the cargo refactor. I think they had also made some honorable mentions of there being some other the usual buildup of issues, corruption in the database kind of bullshit. So who actually knows what the underlying reasons are? So they might still go and do it if there's enough other issues going on that would be theoretically solved by a database reset. But I don't know if that's the case or not. Yeah. I mean, honestly, just having any reason to go and pull out ground vehicles would
Yeah.
be great.
No, but they talked about in the jump point how the devs that were working on it, they want that, and they are working on it currently to have AI be not just as they are right now, where you can have AI on foot walking around the planetary surface and being combat AI, and having a drop ship dropping them off so they can get off the ship and essentially have reinforcements. They want to talk about having convoys, having ground vehicles, having random encounters on planetary outposts, making the world feel a bit more alive and like you're walking in on something rather than just it's a playground that you have to go somewhere to spawn something and trigger stuff. It's no, things are already happening whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
Like a realistic type of scenario. It's not like, oh, I go here, trigger event. It's some event's already going on here, and I'm just walking in on it, and now I'm in the thick of it.
How dare you be walking?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm driving.
Come
Flying.
walking here.
Forget about it. But that was an interesting piece of news from Jump Point that they mentioned. And they also talked about the what was the new, not the Anvil, the Atlas platform.
Yeah.
They talked about the Atlas platform. They talked about the Centurion model in there and how they came up with it and all that.
What I hate about it, at least right now, is that we literally have a single ship that can.
Yeah, well, that's the major problem. I feel like it's going to be less of an issue when stuff like the
Liberator.
Blanking on the name of it, the Anvil.
Liberator.
What?
The Liberator.
Yes, the Liberator.
The literal pocket carrier.
Yeah, when that comes out, that'll be less of an issue. And you can make the argument it's kind of less of an issue now that we have the Hercules model.
Well, the Hercules is the only thing.
No, the 890 can too, but it's the only.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's fair.
And
stupid,
and the Carrack if you drive it into the hangar.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty high task that you can only do on specific planetary surfaces that have an incline or that are on a cliffside. And you're never getting it out after that.
Who says I want to get out?
But yeah, you only have 2 ships that can really carry it right now. And granted, the Hercules is one of them. And that is a more, like, it's a utility ship. It's readily available in the sense that you can buy it in game and everything. And it's not like a schlep of a ship like the 890. But it is annoying that, like, you need that big of a ship for a ground vehicle. And most people want to say they're flying their Constellation or a Cutlass Black or whatever, like, smaller ships for a smaller, like a 2-man or 1-man crew. And eventually when you will be able to use ground vehicles because X location will not allow a ship to fly in, like go into this small key, go into this area that has anti-aircraft defenses that are going to annihilate your ship in seconds, stuff like that. Having a ground vehicle would be very good, but there's a lack of variety with ground vehicles right now. And I know you and I both want like an APC unit the size of the Ursa rover because of its smaller size, and just having something that's, whether it has guns or not is irrelevant. Just make it armored so it's tough as nails. This is why you can have decent speed, got armor, and it's just meant to get you from point A to point B one piece. Like that's its entire purpose.
Yep.
And you can fit it in most ships.
We still need larger craft though, or I'm not sure how to get rid of, because it's like part of my worry is, especially with what we're seeing now, and I mean, I think we're going to see this no matter what to some degree. I just don't want to see it get too ridiculous. But what I'm talking about is that with a lot of the tech now, all the back-end tech and stuff being done, to where we can now have a lot larger craft. Obviously we can start having things like the 890 jump in, the Carrack in, the Reclaimer in. But with some of these stylistic choices we're getting, my worry is that for things like, hey, we went and made a whole bunch of variants of the Atlas model vehicle here. Cool, great. What the fuck is actually going to go and realistically go and move these things around? Well, you got an 890 jump and you got a Hercules. Well, the Hercules is more realistic. The 890 jump really isn't. But okay, we've got two vehicles that can go and transport this one vehicle. Without one of those two, this thing's useless, essentially. Well, it's not maneuverable on anything larger than a micro scale. It was like, okay, that's fine. But then they go, well, we got to have ways to go and transport this stuff, right? And so they start making bigger and bigger and bigger ships. And my worry is we're going to see things like the 890 jump. We're going to see things like the Carrack, which are supposed to be essentially top of their class, the largest one of them out there, get dwarfed because one, well, we can now do larger stuff, so we want to do larger stuff, which makes sense, but you're gonna go and just start seeing not feature creep, but ship creep, I guess, in terms of size and in terms of functions of them, that's going to go and outclass what came before, to the point where what came before to at least some degree is not worthless, but it becomes, well, why would I ever use that when I've got this?
Right.
I mean, for example, why would I ever go and fly a Nox or a hoverclad when I have a Dragonfly? Because the Nox has weapons, cool, great. The hoverclad has some onboard storage, cool, great. Well, the Dragonfly has onboard storage, it has weapons, and it holds two people. Why would I ever use something else? Now, and obviously, some people go, well, I just like the look of the Nox or the hoverclad or the X1.
Or
and
the other
fine.
two are faster and they're definitely more maneuverable, so there is that aspect
Sure.
to it. And they're smaller.
But at the same point,
well, at least the Noxes.
and especially with that, I don't want to go and see older options become obsolete simply because they're older. I mean, I think we're starting to see this with a lot of the original ships that came out. I mean, realistically, who uses an Aurora or a Mustang, even a Constellation? The base versions of these Freelancer. Sure, some people use them for scooting around. I will say the Cutlass has managed to go and stand pretty fucking solid throughout all of this, and it was one of those very early ships.
It was actually one of the worst ships at the time too.
Oh, it was.
It was
I remember
I hated
the original buttons and everything.
I remember hating that ship so much, and then when they did the rework, I'm like, actually liking the Cutlass. What the hell's wrong? Yeah. What's going on?
But just I'm worried that in their exuberance to go and build bigger and better and to use their developed tools to their full extent here, I'm just worried we're going to start seeing a lot of the older vehicles, the original ones, go to the point of, well, why would I ever go and use this when I've got that? Because the new stuff and that and I mean part of this is they've said before that, well, hey, as we develop new ships, we develop new tech for them, and then we go and roll that tech out to older ships, and it's like, to some degree, yes, but at this point, and this is just my opinion, but at this point, I would say that pretty much any ship that was made before 2018 at this point needs to be queued up for a full total rework. If nothing else than just to go and see with the new tech, how would we actually go and block this ship out? Because there are plenty of ships out there. I mean, look at the Freelancer, look at the Constellation. Just in terms of their footprint, versus usable space. The Constellation series is abysmal in terms of footprint versus usable space. And look at one of its direct competitors coming out soon, the Corsair. I've harped on this many of times, where the living module is fucking abysmal in the Constellation versus in the Corsairs. Like, you have, I think they scrapped the individual cabins, and now they're going for kind of a semi-enclosed bunk area. But even still, you have what's effectively a lot more consideration put into just the floor plan of this thing. And now, how willing are they to go back and look at ships and go, hey, with the tech we've got now, with what we've learned now, how would this actually be laid out? How would we actually go and develop this now versus 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we didn't know half the things we do? And my worry is that if they are willing to do that, it's a very, 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 very much on the back burner of new and shiny. Because I think, when was the last ship rework at all that we got? I don't even remember.
I don't know,
300?
but that's the thing. Like the Constellation, I would say, at least maybe not this Section A, but Section B, the living quarters, definitely needs an internal rework.
One, and I think you had pointed out before too, like, if you look at the Constellation Phoenix, it has the entire back section where the cargo area is, above where the cargo area is, and all the other ones. All the other ones have open air cargo areas. Whereas the Phoenix has, hey, it's all closed off. We have all these luxurious things here, and then you have a little hidden elevator to go into the cargo section, which is still the same size. I'm just like, holy fucking shit, you have total luxury and the same cargo area? It's like, why are none of the other variants using this empty space here? It's literally just sitting here. They've shown it can be used. Why is nothing using this? You know, sure, you might still have to have some space blocked out for the missile racks that are internal there, but beyond that, you could have so much more there.
Especially when they can have a bridge essentially going between. I don't know. There's a way they can do it that's better.
Hell, if you wanted to keep it open air, maybe you could have on like the Constellation Aquila, which is the exploration area.
Yeah.
You could even have it to where, for example, let's say you have a docking crane built into the roof that will go and accept a Ursa rover, and only an Ursa rover, and it will drop down, pick it up, pull it up, and now you have that full cargo space still available. Now, obviously, to go and get the Ursa rover back out, you have to go and clear your cargo off, drop it down, drive it off, put your cargo back on. Okay, now you can lift it back up to where, if you do have cargo, that could be a 15-minute venture. Just moving your cargo around, pulling it out, putting the cargo back, and bringing it back up. But it gives you the option of, I can have my vehicle and my cargo. Or you could have a pair of bikes in there. Something like that. Like, that would be some pretty cool use of that space there.
As much as I hate to say it, I think what they should be doing, instead of making new vehicles, they should be reworking the older vehicles that are going to be falling behind when a new vehicle comes out. As you mentioned earlier,
yeah, and I feel like these old vehicles are only falling further and further and further and further. And again, we're being told, no, we've got this in mind. And again, we don't know internally what's happening. They might very well have all this stuff already blocked out, and just, we'll get to it when we get to it, because we're super fucking busy here. But it would be nice to at least know that some of this stuff is going on.
Like, for instance, the Carrack, they shrunk down the Carrack from the initial model of it, let alone the concept, just because they wanted it to fit on the smaller landing pads. And honestly, that hurt the Carrack.
Oh, it did.
Like, for starters, getting in and out of any hangar is a pain in the ass. Because it just barely fits the opening of the hangar.
Well, nowadays, when like every single time I have called in the Carrack in the last year, I think it's always been in the like the one step up larger hangars. So it's
Okay.
like they've already made the choice that no, the Carrack's only going to spawn in these larger hangars. Then what was the point of shrinking it?
Yeah, because now because even if you didn't shrink it, okay, that main elevator should be going all the way down to the surface.
Well, I mean, and I can understand with that they said, hey, look, right now there's a tech blocker on that.
Because doors and
They
elevators are the hardest
did.
thing to do in video games. They have stated that, and that is true.
But just in terms, and again, with the whole size aspect of, oh, we shrunk it to fit in smaller hangars. We've got a fucking snub that fits in it, the Pisces. We've got a rover that comes with it. Bear in mind, I've at least for now, if you buy the Carrack at all in the pledge store, meaning with real money, every single Carrack bought with real money comes with, or there might be an exclusion for the exploration pack because that comes with a Carrack, but at least CIG.
If you're buying the standalone Carrack, you're getting the Pisces with it.
And the Pisces and the Ursa.
Right.
So every single Carrack comes with a rover that you can drive out. Bear in mind the Ursa will hold cargo. I think it's supposedly 4 SCU.
Which is the same as the Pisces.
Yeah, and the Pisces also holds 4 SCU. So it's like already there. Either way, I'm going to have a way to go and be able to get to port either by ground or by air. Plus the thing has a docking collar on there. So it's like, and it's a small, air quotes, small ship docking car, as opposed to like the 890 Jump or the Hammerhead's large docking collar. So it's like any station that, oh, sorry, you're too big to get in a hangar, cool, they're gonna have a small ship. If this is a small station, they're going to have a small ship docking port, I guarantee it. And even if they don't, okay, I've got my Ursa, I've got my Pisces. There is no reason here to really go and shrink this down. But yeah, who knows if that'll ever change? Who knows? But
they also drastically hurt the aesthetic of the ship. But that's just a personal opinion.
Well, I mean, there's also too even still for I think because of how they shrunk it down, there is a lot of wasted space where stuff was going to go and now it can't.
Yep.
But we'll see if when they get to the point of going and modifying the Carrack for things like the drones, putting in the repair bay or repair facilities there, putting in the modularity, and whatever they figure out for the modules there. Maybe at that point something will change. I don't know, but it definitely seems like some ships, Terrapin, get the short end of the stick. I mean, the Terrapin needs a fucking rework, at least internally.
Internally, I'd say, yeah. Externally, it's fine, but it needs to be internally reworked. I think
that fucking chair in the middle is so fucking stupid. Like when it was still a 2-person cruise ship.
Yeah.
Because originally it was supposed to be a 2-person crew. They're like, no, we're gonna make it 1 person. Even still, that should all be done from the like. There would be no reason to have a separate fucking chair. I could see. I would be a-okay with, you have regular scanning, you have deep scanning. I would be perfectly okay with this being some kind of a motor module switch to where when you're doing this deep scanning, you're stationary.
Right.
So it's like, because you're and again, you're in the pilot chair. You're switching to a different screen or
it's like mining mode or missile operated. Yeah. Well, maybe not missile operated, but like mining mode, where you're switching from your regular flight mode to mining mode. Now you're not moving the ship; you're moving a mining manipulator.
You're moving your scanner, whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Your directional scanning thing or whatever it is. Yeah.
If you're doing it from the pilot seat, because I'm the pilot and I'm busy with something else, I can't be flying and doing the scanning at the same time. That makes perfect sense. If it's 2 chairs, it's, well, I grab my buddy and he does the scanning while I fly around. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not what this thing is billeted as. They really need to go. It just doesn't make any consistent sense here. So it needs a rework. And
Honestly,
there's
they
plenty of
should
other-
change. You know, if you're gonna have the chair, they should just change it to something like the MSR at that point, or the Herald,
Well, I mean,
where that chair.
The MSR pretty much does have that similar kind of thing, but it's like with the MSR, it's a multi-crew ship. It's
Right. Well, I meant
intended
like it
that-
has a seat dedicated to the data collecting and stuff like that. Like make that chair a data collecting chair or something. But also,
Yeah,
my problem is the
even still, it shouldn't be in the fucking middle of the room.
no, it shouldn't be in the middle of the room, and I feel it should be manipulatable like the seats on the freelancer turret, where it's not there all the time.
Yeah,
Like folds into the ceiling,
even
or comes out of the wall,
having it fold into the wall or something. Just something like that. That goes
turn it
and
into like a
allows you
Murphy
to
seat.
make-
It's like a Murphy bed, Murphy seat.
Yeah.
Comes out of the wall.
Yeah.
Because it just takes up space, and as he's like, it's supposed to be a 2-man. Like, I love the idea of it being a 2-man ship. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it can be operated by a single person, but it benefits from being 2. But and I've heard people say, oh, there's only, there's one bed because you'd be taking shifts or whatever. It's like, yeah, but say you and your buddy, like, this is the ship you guys rock.
Well, it's like,
this is the ship that you guys
unless
spend all your
have
time in.
Synced up schedules, that's not gonna fucking work.
Well, and even if that's the case, like say this is the ship that you and I, we're always cruising around together in the Terrapin. We're usually gonna be playing together. With the odd case,
Yeah.
okay, maybe you're playing alone, but I'm still be on the ship via one of the beds logged out, or whatever. There should still be 2 beds for the sake of there's 2 people on the ship. They both need a bed.
Well, I mean, just unless you are getting on right when I am getting off, it won't fucking work.
Right.
And vice versa. So it's like, unless we're taking 12-hour shifts every time we're playing, it won't fucking work. It's a fucking like, the idea behind it isn't necessarily stupid, but the way it would play out is fucking stupid. But yeah, it needs a fucking
Of course, we're talking endgame there, but like when the game is actually out in the state where you're gonna be living on your ship to that extent, landing at ports to pick up supplies or whatever it is, and then go back out into the black. You're living on that ship, right? You're logging in and out from that ship. That's your home. You're gonna need 2 beds for 2 people. Like, yeah, having one restroom makes sense. Having a 2-bedroom apartment in New York, you don't need 2 bathrooms, 1. You don't need 2 of everything, but you need 2 beds at least, and you need 2 locker storage area units for each person. And the ship should be modular too, like giving it the ability to have a med bed, so you can become a armored ambulance.
No,
Because
search and rescue, military search, or I should say, you would be a medevac or a case evac at that point.
yeah, well, I mean, I forgot about this last time we talked about the idea, but for anyone who had watched that and watching now, I did say that the UEE does not have a ambulance because Drake makes one and they don't use Drake. They do have one, the RSI Apollo. I completely forgot about that ship's existence. But yeah, you have the Apollo, which is definitely, this whole thing is built around ambulance. It can be anything from a tier 1 to a tier 2 to a tier 3 bed, so it can do pretty much anything depending on what variant you have. But having the Terrapin be one too would be great, just for that modularity for the gameplay and options. Like the Apollo's great, but it's a multi-crew ship that has a lot of room. So like it's a bigger ship. This is one small ship for 2 people. This is a literal space ambulance at that point. 1 bed, 2 people, driver and the medic, and any patient you have on the bed at that point. Like that'd be a really fun idea. And then you can also have it where maybe it's a cargo module, right, where you're just using it as a freighter. Give us options. That's all people want.
That's really what I want with a lot of this, is I want options.
Also, I do think that the Mustang has been given life again with now it can hold cargo.
Yeah, no, it did. That did help at least a little bit.
And the Aurora, I think, is good. I think the problem with the Aurora and Mustang right now is that it's not that they're useless. It's just maybe part of it's a cargo refactor being a thing. Like, because I don't think the Aurora can cargo yet. At least not in the way it's supposed to, where the boxes are underneath the ship. But a lot of like those ships are hurt by better starter ships, but I will say that they're still good starter ships for what they are. Like they're supposed to be that bottom line cheap ass starter ship in lore, in game, and on the website. So they serve the purpose that they're made for, but a lot of older ships are indeed suffering from like they were designed several dozen years ago versus newer ships that came out this year or last year and were made this last year. Concepted. Done. Like I think the Carrack would benefit from a rework like the Cutlass had. Cutlass is a good baseline on how to go about it. You know, rework of a really bad ship turned it into one of the best ships in the game in regards to all-purpose ability. Now, maybe not the same thing for the Carrack because the Carrack is a very specific ship. Exploration, it's space, but got to make it suit that purpose 100%. I don't know. But I think we're.
And I mean, we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
But they need to go and I mean, some of it is just that we're still seeing tier 0, tier 1 for a lot of tech.
Yeah, so we're not going to actually be able to see any of these things play as they're supposed to for a while, like the Carrack. Like right now, it's a good ship to use. It's got a lot of versatility in what you do in game right now, but the ship, as for its purpose in the game, it's useless. There is no gameplay for exploration yet. Like most of the rooms on that ship are just dressing at the moment.
Yeah, they have no real use.
Like the drone bays, the scanning room, the topography deck, all of it's useless. The only thing that you're ever going to be using on that ship right now, and probably for the next year, I want to estimate, is obviously the cockpit, the bridge, and the medbay, and maybe the cruise quarters. And obviously the hangar and cargo deck. But
no.
I mean, like where you're going to be walking around and doing stuff. Well, actually, when cargo factors, you will be walking around doing stuff with the cargo deck. But you know, like, that's 50% of the ship at most that you're using.
If that.
If that.
I mean,
like,
bear in mind, I call most of the hallways wasted space.
What I don't understand is there's that ladder, but the top.
The what?
The ladder, but some of the doors don't open on it.
The tech blocker.
This is a pain in the ass, is what it is.
Oh, it is.
Sometimes I like using the ladder because it's faster than the elevator. And I like the whole like you're on a ship in crawl space going up the Jeffries tube type gameplay, but I feel like a lot of ships would benefit from stairs. Like just having a flight of stairs. The 890 has it, and it works really well.
Details.
yeah, I think that's it. You got anything else? Or we're done?
Nope.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to end it. I hope. Oh, we got Meiji One saying, "Hey guys, sorry I only saw it now." But yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, you guys know the drill. And
If you didn't enjoy, fuck you. No, I'm kidding.
and I guess we'll see you guys during post CitizenCon Saturday night. Hopefully CitizenCon's good.